Sequel number 35 of the Church of Uganda at 150 years, a celebration. Brethren, in this sequel, we are going to find out about what happened in Toro, because in 1895, trouble broke out in Toro Kingdom. We are also then going to dig more into the third pastoral visit of the Bishop of Eastern Equatoria, Bishop Alfred Tucker, and we see how he carried on his pastoral work, or his pastoral visit work, during his third pastoral visit. Welcome. My name is Christopher Amos Chikomeko Ntambi, and therefore let's begin. Apolo Kivebulaaya, who was posted in Toro, found himself in trouble. What happened? In November 1895, there was an uprising by the Toro people. Why? Because the British protectorate officer in charge there became hostile to the local chiefs, to the extent of flogging them. And he was using the soldiers of the Uganda native Uganda rifle soldiers, the army of the British protectorate government. Now these soldiers would beat up the chiefs on the instruction of this British protectorate officer in charge in Toro. Now the hostility reached the bush schools. When the battle rose up, they attacked the bush schools, because the bush schools, as far as they were concerned, were supervised by missionaries who were white. And therefore, in their own understanding, the British protectorate officers, who were also white, and the missionaries, who were also white, had no difference. They were one and the same thing, according to the Batoro. And therefore, when an uprising began against the British protectorate officers, it included the missionaries who were running mission stations, which mission stations were also developing bush schools. Now, although natives were in charge, teaching in native language, instructing children in native language, that did not remove the fact that they viewed them as puppets of the Europeans. So the Batoro attacked the bush schools, they attacked the church mission stations, and an uprising, especially in Kasese, ensued. Mission station books were banned, catechist properties were banned, and trouble throughout Toro Kingdom was unprecedented. Now, Apolo Kivebulaaya and the other catechists were arrested by the British protectorate officers. Why? Because in the eyes of the protectorate officers, they did nothing to prevent the uprising, which therefore meant they seemed to be on the side of the revolution, of the attackers of the mission stations, of the attackers of the British protectorate stations. And therefore these were arrested, and in fact they were marched all the way to Nkao and put in prison. It was that bad. So now Catechist Apolo Kivebulaaya and his colleagues are in prison. Not the missionaries, but the native teachers were in prison after marching them all the way to Nkao. So here is Apolo Kagwa back in his own country, but as a prisoner. A prisoner for sympathizing with the revolution by the Toro people, especially in Kasese area. Remember, for him, he was given ministry around the Bakonjo area. Now, their flock in Kasese and the rest of Toro were scattered because they had no leaders anymore. The missionaries were very few, one or two. They couldn't do much. They could not even speak the language, so they could do very little. It was the native catechists who helped the missionaries to preach the word and to teach. So without the catechists, it was impossible. So the battle remained sheep without any shepherds. In future sequels, we shall see how that situation was resolved. And now let's take some time to see how in 1895, during this third pastoral visit of Bishop Tucker, he went around doing his pastoral work. Now, Bishop Tucker went on an extended pastoral visit of Chagwe, Busoga, and Buvuma. On the 16th of December 1895, he confirmed 161 men and 91 women, all at the Ngogwe Mission Station Church, and at the same time carried out an ordination. He ordained Blackledge into a priest, and he also ordained Rowling into a priest. Can't we then therefore conclude that this was a workaholic bishop? Can you imagine a bishop combining a confirmation with an ordination? Remember, the order of service for the two is not the same. How he managed to combine both in a single service, well, we can only say that hooray, hooray, hooray to you, Bishop Tucker. This was great work. Now, Bishop Tucker then spent his Christmas of the year 1895 at Chief Luba's palace in Busoga. Chief Luba, the one who had killed Huntington, had never died. He was an old man, still a chief, and now guess what? He killed the other bishop, but he's now enjoying Christmas because he had become a Christian with another bishop. What a change in life. What a change in forgiveness. What if I was to be a preacher? What kind of love Jesus brings to people and changes hearts? Well, here is testimony. Now, Luba was the title of the head of the Buhna chiefdom. He was one among 10 other Busoga chiefs for the Bugabura. For example, there were the Babula for Butembe. There was Intembe for Luka. There was Tabigwa for Chiguru. There was Ngobi for Bugweri. There was Menha for Bukori. There was Wakori for Buhore. There was Namuhumba for Busiki Kisiki, and for Busiki, and there was Bulamogi, who was for Zibondo, and there was Bukono for Nkono. Later on, the bishop took a boat and sailed to Buvuma Island. With all the challenges of water, he was in very high spirits. Yeah. So in the new year, 1896, Bishop Tucker was still in the islands of Lake Victoria on a pastoral visit. He visited Busi Island, he visited Bukasa Island, he visited Kome Island, where Pilkington had got his revelation of a revival. In fact, while at Kome, the bishop confirmed men and women who had completed their classes, thanks to their native teachers who had reached that far. Bishop Tucker returned to Namirembe from the islands, and he was to host the king of Toro, King Kasagama, who was on a visit to Uganda. Remember, in Toro there was an uprising against missionaries. So was this really an official visit, the way the missionaries want to portray it? Because these details are in Bishop Tucker's book. Or is he also under a kind of a house arrest by the British rulers, covering it up as a visit? So here he is, Kasagama. He has come visiting, according to the missionaries, and Bishop Tucker took him to Fort Lugard, where the British officers accused Kasagama of encouraging slave trade in Toro. They also accused him of involvement in illegal gunpowder trade and encouraging Christian catechists to tell lies to British officers in their interpreting services. This was a very big accusation. It was like Apolo Kagwa was being accused with his colleagues that when they are engaged to do interpretation services for the British protectorate officers, they would lie. The British officers would say one thing and the interpreters would say another thing. So these were the kinds of allegations which Taka wrote about in his book, and Kasagama found himself accused when he got before the British protectorate rulers at their Fort Lugard headquarters. Kasagama was not in a hurry, and so a full-scale trial was called at Fort Lugard, and eyewitnesses were called to testify all the way from Toro, and the catechists who had been arrested and jailed were also brought to give testimony. And at the end of the trial, Kasagama was exonerated of all the charges, which were then dropped. The catechists, including Apolo Kagwa, who had been jailed, were also set free because it was realized that it was all lies and lies and lies. Now, Kasagama, who had witnessed how the truth had come up, accepted to be baptized. And on the 15th of March, 1896, he was baptized at the Namirembe mission station and given the name Daudi. He had used his long stay to conclude his catechism classes at Namirembe. Now, the Toro King and the catechists then returned home free and victorious against their enemies. And let's end it here for tonight. May the good Lord bless us all. I remain the producer of this sequel, Christopher Amos Chikomeko Ntambi.